Most people spend the duration of a dynamic with an avoidant trying to create the conditions for the avoidant to access their genuine feelings, trying to be patient enough, present enough, understanding enough, safe enough. Trying to construct the specific relational environment that will allow the defendant interior to finally open in the way the occasional unguarded moments suggest is possible. Trying in various forms and with varying degrees of awareness of what they are doing to be the person who finally reaches the real thing underneath all the management and the distance and the careful emotional calibration. This effort is understandable. It comes from genuine care and from the honest perception of something real beneath the surface. The genuine feeling is there. The unguarded moments were not invented. The depth that was occasionally visible was not projection. There is something real underneath the defensive architecture, and it is reasonable from a position of genuine love to want to reach it. What this conversation is about is the honest psychological examination of what actually forces the contact with genuine feeling, not what creates comfortable conditions for it, not what patiently waits for it, what actually forces it. What makes the genuine feeling undeniable to the avoidant themselves in a way that the comfortable configuration was always allowing them to avoid. The word forces requires honest handling before going further. It is not being used to suggest that genuine feeling can be manufactured or extracted through the right technique. It is being used in the psychological sense of conditions that make the usual avoidance of genuine feeling genuinely impossible. Conditions under which the management strategies that have always successfully kept the genuine feeling at a comfortable distance from full consciousness encounter something they cannot adequately process through the ordinary routing. Under which the genuine feeling surfaces not because it was invited, but because the conditions that were suppressing it have changed in ways that the suppression cannot accommodate. These conditions are real. They are psychologically coherent. And understanding them is part of understanding both the avoidance interior and your own situation with clarity. The first thing that forces genuine feeling contact is the removal of the comfortable alternative. The avoidance relationship with their genuine feelings about you has always been mediated by the existence of the comfortable alternative. The comfortable alternative is the managed version of the connection, the configuration in which the genuine feeling exists and is real, but is kept at the specific manageable level that the defensive architecture requires, in which the depth of the feeling is acknowledged, internally and privately, at a level just sufficient to sustain the connection without exceeding the level at which the fear activates the full defensive response. The comfortable alternative requires your continued availability to sustain, requires the specific, reliable, always there quality of your presence, as the background against which the managed version of the connection is operated. Requires the knowledge that the genuine feeling, if it ever becomes undeniably loud, has somewhere to go. The restored connection, the available warmth, the specific person who has consistently demonstrated they will be there when reached for. When your availability is genuinely removed, not reduced, not withheld strategically, but genuinely and completely redirected toward your own life, the comfortable alternative disappears. The managed version of the connection cannot operate without the presence it was managing. The specific, carefully calibrated distance at which the genuine feeling was being maintained at a comfortable level cannot be maintained when the person from whom the distance was being calibrated is no longer in the relational landscape as an available reference point. Without the comfortable alternative, the genuine feeling has no managed channel. It cannot be kept at the specific tolerable level that the management strategies required. It surfaces at its actual level, which is considerably higher than the management was suggesting, which is louder and more consuming and more difficult to route around than the comfortable configuration was allowing it to be experienced as, which is, finally, the genuine size of what was always there underneath the management. This is not a technique. The removal of your availability that produces this effect is not the strategic withdrawal of someone who has read that. Making yourself less available activates avoidant feeling. It is the genuine, honest, self-directed reorientation of someone who finally decided that their own life deserved the primary investment of their own attention. The genuineness of the removal is what makes it function as the forcing condition. The performed version does not remove the comfortable alternative. It simply changes its configuration. The genuine version actually removes it. The second thing that forces genuine feeling contact is the experience of genuine loss, rather than managed distance. Throughout the dynamic, what the avoidant was experiencing in the periods of their own withdrawal was not genuine loss. It was managed distance. the specific, comfortable, chosen feeling space of someone who has created separation from closeness that was becoming uncomfortable. Managed distance feels different from genuine loss because managed distance is chosen and reversible, and organized around the knowledge that the connection is still available when the management is complete and the return becomes possible. Genuine loss has a completely different quality. It is not chosen, it is not reversible through the avoidant's own decision to return. It is not organized around the comfort of knowing the connection is waiting. It is the specific, unchosen, genuinely uncertain reality of something that may not be there in the same form, or at all, when reached for. The avoidant has typically experienced your temporary withdrawals and your periods of reduced availability as managed distance, has interpreted them through the model of the dynamic and the history of your consistent return as the comfortable version of distance that they themselves practice, as something that will resolve when you decide to resolve it, as a pause in the pattern rather than a genuine departure from it. The moment that interpretation becomes genuinely uncertain, the moment the comfortable model of your behavior stops providing the reassurance that the return is coming, is the moment managed distance becomes the genuine possibility of genuine loss. And genuine loss is the condition under which the genuine feeling surfaces in a way that managed distance never requires it to surface. Because managed distance can coexist with managed feeling, with the genuine emotion kept at the comfortable defensive architecture compatible level that the knowledge of the connection's continued availability allows. Genuine loss cannot coexist with managed feeling in the same way. The urgency of genuine loss, the specific physiological attachment system activation of something that matters, being genuinely at risk, overrides the management capacity. The feeling surfaces past the management at the specific level the management was always containing it below. The third forcing condition is the encounter with specific evidence of your genuine flourishing. This is one of the more psychologically subtle of the forcing conditions and one of the most consistently effective. It operates through a specific mechanism that requires understanding rather than simply being named. During the dynamic, the avoidant's interior model of the relationship had a specific structure. The structure included an implicit understanding of the power dynamic that organized the connection. An understanding in which your investment was the dependent variable, the one that was greater, more visible, more organized around the connection's continuation. In which your well-being was more connected to the relationship's health than the avoidance was. In which the asymmetry ran in the direction that made the managed distance feel sustainable, because the managed distance was being absorbed by someone whose investment in the connection was doing the absorbing. When you genuinely flourish in the aftermath of the departure, when the evidence that reaches the avoidant, directly or indirectly, has the specific quality of someone who is not just surviving, but actually building something genuine, actually inhabiting their own life more fully, actually becoming more themselves rather than less in the conditions of the avoidance absence, that evidence destabilizes the implicit model. The model did not predict this. The model predicted that your investment would produce the specific, visible, available to be managed distress of someone who needs the connection more than the avoidant does. The flourishing is the undeniable evidence that the model was wrong, that the investment was never as asymmetric as the model required it to be, that the person on the other side of the dynamic is not diminished by the departure, but expanded by it. This evidence forces the genuine feeling contact because it produces the specific activating experience of genuine reevaluation. The model revision requires accessing the genuine feeling to understand what the revised model means. What it means that the person they were relating to, as someone more dependent on the connection, is demonstrating themselves to be someone who flourishes without it. What it means about the nature of the connection. What it means about what was being offered. What it means about what was taken for granted. What it means about the actual cost of having managed a connection that contains something this genuinely valuable. The genuine feeling is the only available resource for answering these questions. The management strategies were built for a different model. The revised model requires genuine engagement rather than managed response. The fourth forcing condition is time combined with the absence of resolution. Time alone does not force genuine feeling contact. Time with the comfortable alternative still available simply allows the management strategies to continue operating. Time with distraction and new engagement and the forward motion of a life being lived produces adaptation rather than genuine feeling contact. Time on its own is not the forcing condition. Time combined with the genuine, unresolved, persistently present quality of your unfinished significance, that combination is the forcing condition. The specific quality of something that has not been processed, has not been resolved, has not been adequately accounted for by the available management strategies, persisting in the avoidance interior over a sustained period with consistent urgency rather than the diminishing urgency that genuine processing produces. The avoidant has processed other relationships, has moved through other losses with the specific adapted, functionally managed quality of someone whose defensive architecture is effective at the ordinary processing of relational endings. The processing does not require genuine feeling contact for these ordinary endings. The management strategies are adequate to the task. Time plus management produces sufficient adaptation. What is different about the processing of the connection with you, what makes the time combined with absence of resolution the forcing condition, rather than simply a difficult period that will eventually adapt, is the specific quality of what is not resolving. The genuine, specific, accurately calibrated to your actual worth encoding that the nervous system performed. The specific, real, not accurately managed feeling that is not responding to the ordinary routing strategies. The specific, ongoing, daily encountered evidence of something that is not diminishing the way ordinary things diminish. The genuine feeling is the thing that is not resolving. And it's not resolving, over time, in the conditions of your genuine absence, eventually exceeds the management capacity in the specific way that produces the forcing. The management strategies cannot adequately process something they were not built to process. The genuine feeling is not something the management strategies were built to process. They were built to prevent it from surfacing, not to metabolize it once it has surfaced at its actual level. The fifth forcing condition is the honest encounter with what the pattern has cost across time. This is different from the regret about the specific relationship. It is the broader, more confronting, more personally significant encounter with the pattern as a pattern, with the full arc of a relational history that shows the same structure across multiple significant connections. The same withdrawal at the moment of genuine closeness. The same management of honest communication rather than genuine engagement. The same comfortable configuration sustained by the other person's consistent investment until the other person finally, honestly departed. The same experience of genuine loss as the consequence of the same choices. The encountering of the pattern as a pattern, rather than as a series of individual relationship histories that each have their own specific explanation, is forced by the specific accumulating, eventually undeniable weight of the evidence. The evidence that the outcomes are not coincidental, that the specific structure of each significant connection's ending is not the product of incompatibility with each specific person, that the common variable across all the significant losses is the pattern itself. This recognition, when it arrives with genuine force, rather than being managed at the level of intellectual acknowledgement, without full emotional weight, forces the contact with genuine feeling because it requires the genuine feeling to be the resource for the genuine reckoning with the full cost. The intellectual acknowledgement of the pattern does not require genuine feeling. It can remain a cognitive observation about attachment styles and developmental history and the theoretical understanding of avoidant psychology. The genuine reckoning with the full, personal, specific, now including you cost of the pattern cannot remain at the cognitive level. It requires the genuine feeling to be present and accessible in a way that the cognitive processing alone does not demand. The sixth forcing condition is one that operates quietly and is often the most underestimated of all of them. It is the specific forcing effect of your indifference, not performed indifference, genuine indifference. The specific, authentic, unforced quality of someone who has genuinely moved on enough that the monitoring of the avoidant state is no longer the primary orientation of their attention. The distinction between performed and genuine indifference is the same distinction that appears throughout this conversation and throughout this entire arc of conversations. The performed version is organized around the avoidance response. It is still about them, still calibrated to their perception of it, still a form of engagement with the dynamic even though it looks like disengagement. The avoidance nervous system, which is exquisitely calibrated to the emotional atmosphere of significant relational contexts, registers the performance as performance. It does not activate the forcing condition because the underlying orientation is still present. The genuine version is not about the avoidant at all. It is the natural, organic, unforced quality of someone whose attention has genuinely moved to other things, whose primary investment is in their own life and their own becoming, whose encounters with information about the avoidant produce the mild, interested, not particularly activated response of someone for whom the avoidant has become genuinely historical rather than currently significant. This genuine indifference, which is not coldness, not hardness, not the defensive withdrawal of someone who is protecting themselves from feeling, but simply the honest reorientation of genuine forward motion, forces the genuine feeling contact because it removes the specific dynamic that the avoidance defended attachment was organized around. The dynamic required your continued orientation toward them, required the specific, available, reliably present quality of your caring attention as the background against which the management strategies were operating. Without that background, the management strategies lose their primary reference point. The defensive architecture was built to manage the approach of intimacy. It was not built to manage the genuine absence of someone who has genuinely moved on. These are different relational situations requiring different responses, and the genuine indifference produces the one the architecture has the least adequate response to. It forces the acknowledgement of genuine feeling, because the genuine feeling is the only internal resource that has anything honest to say about what the genuine indifference means. The seventh forcing condition is perhaps the most philosophically significant and the least immediately practical in its operation, but it is the one that tends to produce the most enduring contact with genuine feeling when it arrives. It is the encounter with mortality. Not necessarily literal mortality, though that is one of the forms it takes. The more common form is the specific existential confrontation with the limited timeline of a life, and what that limited timeline means for the choices being made within it. The avoidant pattern is, among other things, a strategy for deferral, for keeping genuine engagement with genuine feeling at a manageable distance by implicitly treating it as something that will be engaged with later, when the conditions are more comfortable, when the fear is less activating, when the specific person who is currently available is replaced by or supplemented by some future version of connection that will somehow be less threatening than the current one. This deferral strategy depends on the implicit assumption that later exists and will be available when the conditions shift. The confrontation with the limited timeline, through whatever specific form it takes in the avoidance experience, disrupts this assumption, forces the question of whether the deferral is sustainable, whether later will actually provide what is being deferred toward, whether the pattern of deferring genuine feeling engagement is compatible with the honest accounting of a life with a genuine timeline. This forcing condition does not typically operate through a single dramatic moment of existential reckoning. It operates through the specific accumulating quietly significant weight of recognizing that the years are real and the pattern is not changing, and the specific irreplaceable connections that the pattern has cost are genuinely gone and are not available for later. That you are not waiting. That the genuine forward-moving quality of your actual life is the most undeniable available evidence that the deferral is costing something real and finite. The eighth forcing condition is the most uncomfortable to name honestly because it requires saying something about avoidance that is true, and that the compassionate framing of avoidant psychology sometimes works to obscure. It is the forcing effect of the honest confrontation with the loneliness of the defended life. The defensive architecture was built to protect against the pain of genuine intimacy's risks, against the vulnerability of being fully known and the possibility of that knowing producing rejection or suffocation or the loss of self that the avoidance formative experiences associated with closeness. The protection was adaptive. It served a genuine function in the genuine conditions of the genuine threat. But the protection has a cost that is not always fully acknowledged in the compassionate framing of avoidant psychology. The cost is the specific, sustained, ongoing loneliness of a life that is defended against genuine intimacy. The loneliness of being around people and being essentially alone with the truest things, of having connections that operate at the comfortable level of the managed distance, and missing persistently and quietly the specific quality of genuine knowing, of being capable of far more genuine engagement than the pattern allows, and experiencing the gap between the capability and the pattern as a form of ongoing, private, rarely named suffering. The connection with you reached through some portion of the defensive architecture, produced some degree of genuine knowing, provided some access to the specific quality of being genuinely present with another person in a way that the ordinary managed connections of the avoidance life do not provide. And its loss is forcing the genuine feeling contact partly through this mechanism, through the specific, now undeniable, daily experienced evidence of what the defended life costs in the specific terms of your absence, through the honest encounter with the loneliness that the defensive architecture was always producing alongside the protection it was providing. The genuine feeling contact that this forcing condition produces is not just the feeling about you specifically. It is the broader, more confronting, genuinely significant feeling about the defended life itself. About what the protection has been costing. About whether the pattern is compatible with the kind of life that the honest interior actually wants. About whether the deferral of genuine feeling engagement is serving the life or diminishing it. This broader confrontation is the most significant thing that the forcing conditions together are pointing toward. Not the specific feeling about you, though that is real and is part of it. The genuine, honest, finally undeniable encounter with the full cost of the pattern that produced the specific feeling about you and kept it from being expressed adequately while the expression was available to change something. What does all of this mean for you, practically and honestly? The honest answer is that understanding what forces genuine avoidant feeling contact is useful primarily for the clarity it provides, rather than for the action it suggests. Clarity about what is actually happening in the avoidance interior. Clarity about why it is happening now, rather than during the dynamic when it could have changed something. Clarity about the psychological mechanisms that were always operating and that are now, in the conditions your genuine departure created, finally forced into a different mode. The clarity does not require you to do anything differently. Does not suggest that understanding the forcing conditions means positioning yourself to benefit from them. Does not imply that the genuine feeling contact, when it occurs, automatically produces something that requires your response. The genuine feeling contact in the avoidant is their experience. Their interior, their finally honest encounter with what the pattern cost and what you were and what the genuine feeling about you actually is at its real level, rather than the managed level. What they do with that encounter, whether it produces the genuine, behavioral, over time ordinary conditions evidence of genuine change, or whether it is managed back to a tolerable level once the acute forcing has reduced, is entirely theirs to determine. Your position in all of this is the same position it has been throughout. Building your life. Inhabiting the genuine, forward-moving, completely yours reality of someone who chose themselves honestly and is continuing to choose themselves in the daily, specific, unglamorous, entirely real way of someone who is actually going somewhere. That position is not passive. It is the most active available thing you can do, because the genuine, forward-moving, actually living quality of someone who has genuinely moved on is itself one of the forcing conditions. Your genuine flourishing, your genuine indifference, your genuine reorientation toward your own life. These are not simply the evidence that you are doing well. They are also, functionally, the conditions that make genuine avoidant feeling contact unavoidable in a way that nothing you could have done during the dynamic was able to produce. Not because you are trying to force anything, because you are genuinely living. And the genuineness of your living is the most specific and most undeniable possible communication about what your presence was worth and what the pattern cost, and what genuine feeling about someone genuine looks like when it finally surfaces without the management strategies adequate to contain it. The forcing conditions are operating, the genuine feeling is surfacing. What is done with it is theirs. What you do with your life is yours. Go live it, completely. The genuine feeling has surfaced. That is where the previous section concluded. And the surfacing is significant and real and worth understanding completely. But the surfacing is only the beginning of what matters. The question that the surfacing opens, and that this continuation is going to address directly and honestly, is what happens next, what the genuine feeling contact actually produces. What it requires, what it does and does not mean for the avoidant, for you, and for the honest assessment of the situation you are in. Because genuine feeling contact is not the destination. It is a moment in a process that can go several directions. And being clear about those directions, honestly, without the distortion of either hope or protective cynicism, is the most useful thing available right now. When the genuine feeling finally surfaces past the management strategies, the avoidant encounters something they have been successfully avoiding for the full length of the dynamic. The full, unmediated, actual size of what they feel. Not the managed version, not the comfortable defensive architecture-compatible level at which the feeling was being maintained. The real thing, at its real scale. This encounter is not comfortable. The genuine feeling at its actual level is considerably more demanding than the managed version was suggesting. It does not allow the easy, self-sufficient, I can take or leave this positioning that the managed version was providing. It does not fit neatly into the self-concept of someone who does not need in the specific, visible, others can see it way that genuine needing requires acknowledgement. The genuine feeling, at its actual level, is the specific, embodied, undeniable experience of someone who genuinely, deeply, specifically cares about a specific person and is experiencing that caring in the conditions of that person's genuine absence. Without the buffer. Without the comfortable configuration. Without the specific, reliable, always there quality of your presence, absorbing the weight of the feeling and keeping it from becoming the full, genuine, requires honest engagement experience it actually is. The encounter with the genuine feeling at its actual scale produces a specific crisis in the avoidant self-concept. Because the self-concept has always included the specific, functional narrative of not needing at this level, of being capable of the managed version, without the managed version being a defense against something larger, of the distance being a genuine preference rather than a fear-driven suppression of genuine depth. The genuine feeling, at its actual scale, makes this narrative impossible to maintain, not through argument, through direct experiential contradiction. The feeling is present at a level that the narrative cannot accommodate, and the self-concept, encountering the direct experiential contradiction, has to do something with the information. What it does with the information is the critical question. And here is where honesty is most required, because the hopeful framing and the realistic framing produce different answers. And the realistic framing is the more useful one. The hopeful framing says that the genuine feeling contact, once it occurs, naturally and reliably produces the change in behavior that the genuine feeling was always pointing toward. That the avoidant who finally feels the full, unmanaged weight of what they feel for you will translate that feeling into the genuine, sustained, ordinary conditions showing up that the feeling deserves and that the relationship always required. That the surfacing of the genuine feeling is the beginning of the genuine change. This can happen. It is not impossible. Avoidants who genuinely reckon with the full weight of their genuine feeling and who have the support and the willingness to do the genuine work of addressing the patterns that were suppressing it can become people who show up differently. Genuine change is available. It is real. It happens. The realistic framing says that the genuine feeling contact, on its own, without the additional and separate work of actually interrupting the defensive architecture at the behavioral level, does not automatically produce the change it points towards. That feeling something genuinely and acting differently in response to the feeling are not the same thing. That the avoidant who has finally accessed the genuine depth of what they feel can simultaneously feel it genuinely and continue to be moved by the same fear responses that produced the pattern in the first place, because the fear has not gone anywhere. The genuine feeling surfacing does not dissolve the fear. The fear of closeness, the fear of vulnerability, the fear of genuine need and genuine exposure, and the specific, terrifying possibility of being fully known and finding the knowing insufficient to sustain the connection, all of that is still present, is still active, is still the most deeply grooved response available to the avoidance nervous system in the conditions that activate it. The genuine feeling and the fear are now both present at full volume. And the question of which one wins in the specific daily behavioral moments that determine what the change actually looks like, that question is not answered by the surfacing of the genuine feeling. It is answered by the ongoing, daily, specific choosing that comes after. The ongoing, daily, specific choosing is the part that most conversations about avoidance psychology under-address, because it is less dramatically compelling than the surfacing of genuine feeling. Less emotionally resonant than the image of someone finally honestly in contact with the depth of what they feel. Less satisfying as a narrative than the breakthrough moment. But it is the only part that actually produces change that is real and lasting rather than acute and temporary. And it is worth describing honestly, because understanding what genuine change actually requires is the only way to assess accurately whether genuine change is actually occurring. Genuine change in avoidant behavioral patterns looks like the specific, repeated, behavioral interruption of the pattern at the instance level, not the declaration of willingness to change. Not the intellectual acknowledgement that change is necessary. The actual, moment by moment, this is the moment the pattern, usually runs, and today it did not behavioral evidence of someone who is actively working against deeply grooved responses. It looks like the withdrawal impulse activating and not being followed. The specific moment when closeness reaches the level that usually triggers the retreat, and the retreat does not come. Not because the impulse was absent, the impulse is present, is deeply encoded, has been running for decades. Because the choice was made to not follow it, to stay in the discomfort of the closeness rather than managing it back to a comfortable distance. It looks like the repair being made earlier rather than later, earlier than the usual timeline, earlier than the comfortable timeline. At the specific, slightly uncomfortable moment, when the repair is available but the impulse to let things settle on their own is also present. The choosing of the repair over the settling is the behavioral evidence of the pattern being interrupted rather than followed. It looks like the honest communication being received rather than managed. The specific moment when the honest thing is being said and the instinct to deflect or qualify or find the more comfortable framing of the same information is present, and the deflection is not deployed. The honest thing is heard at the level of honest engagement rather than processed through the comfortable management channel. These moments are not dramatic. They do not announce themselves as significant. They are the specific, ordinary, unglamorous instances of someone doing something that does not come naturally because they have understood that what comes naturally keeps producing outcomes that are not sustainable. The accumulation of these moments over time, in the ordinary conditions of daily relational life, rather than in the activated conditions of crisis or urgency, that accumulation is what genuine change looks like from the outside, what it is recognizable as. What distinguishes it from the temporary activation of better behavior in the conditions of genuine loss? You need to be equipped to tell the difference, not with suspicion or with the pre-decided conclusion that genuine change is impossible. With the honest, clear-eyed, evidence-based assessment of someone who knows what the real thing looks like and what the performed version looks like, and can distinguish between the two in the specific daily, ordinary conditions reality of how someone shows up over time. The performed version of change has specific qualities that distinguish it from the genuine version. It is most available in the activated conditions, in the conditions of urgency and potential loss, and the specific, charged atmosphere of a reunion or re-engagement that carries the emotional weight of everything that preceded it. The performed version is emotionally compelling in these conditions because it is drawing on genuinely activated feeling. The avoidant in the acute phase of genuine feeling contact is genuinely feeling something. And the behavior that genuine feeling produces in the acute phase can look remarkably like the behavior that genuine architectural change would produce. The difference becomes visible over time in the conditions after the urgency normalizes. In the ordinary days when nothing is at stake except the simple, daily, freely made choice of showing up for someone in the ways that showing up requires. In the specific moments when the pattern usually runs, and the question is whether the interruption of the pattern is an ongoing daily practice or a temporary deviation from it. The performed version fades in these conditions. The urgency that was sustaining it is gone. The acute activation that was producing the better behavior has reduced. The ordinary conditions have reasserted themselves, and the pattern, which never actually changed, reasserts with them. The genuine version does not fade in these conditions. It is less emotionally compelling than the performed version in the acute phase because it does not have the same charged everything at stake quality. It is quieter, more routine. Has the specific, slightly worn-in quality of someone who is doing something repeatedly rather than doing it for the first time with the full weight of the acute activation behind it. But it is there in the ordinary conditions. That is the distinguishing feature. The Tuesday presence. The showing up when nothing is at stake except the quiet, daily, freely chosen commitment to being present. That is what genuine change looks like after the acute phase has passed. And that is the only form of evidence worth treating as the answer to the question of whether the genuine feeling contact has produced genuine change. Your role in all of this deserves direct address because it is the thing that most practically matters and the thing that the psychological understanding of avoidant genuine feeling contact can most easily obscure. Your role is not to be available to receive the genuine feeling contact as it surfaces, not to position yourself as the person who will be there when the avoidant finally accesses the depth of what they feel. Not to soften the standards that the whole arc of this experience established, because the genuine feeling has finally surfaced, and the surfacing is moving and the love that is still present in you recognizes it as the real thing it actually is. Your role is to maintain the honest, clear, self-respecting standard that the whole arc of this experience built. The standard that says genuine feeling is necessary but not sufficient. That the genuine feeling, however real and however finally present at its actual scale, requires the genuine behavioral change to be the foundation of anything that is worth building on. That the forcing conditions doing their work does not automatically entitle the avoidant to the restoration of your availability. This is not cruelty. It is the most caring response available. Because the restoration of your availability before the genuine behavioral change is established removes the conditions that are requiring the change. And the removal of those conditions before the change is genuinely established is the mechanism by which the pattern reasserts itself after every previous acute activation. The conditions that are currently forcing genuine feeling contact are also the conditions that are currently requiring genuine change. Those two things are not separable. The forcing and the requiring are the same conditions. Your genuine absence, your genuine reorientation towards your own life, your genuine indifference, these are simultaneously what is forcing the honest interior reckoning and what is requiring the genuine behavioral change as the condition for any different outcome. Maintaining those conditions is not about withholding, it is about integrity, about the honest, clear, self-respecting refusal to remove the conditions that are doing necessary work before that work has produced the results that would make their removal appropriate. The genuine feeling contact is real, and it is significant, and it is the most honest thing that has happened in the avoidance interior, in the full length of the dynamic. It is the first moment at which the genuine size of the feeling has been undeniably present to the person carrying it, without the management, without the comfortable configuration absorbing the weight, without the defensive architecture successfully keeping the feeling at the level compatible with the self-sufficiency narrative. It is also, in the honest accounting, something that should have happened earlier, should have been accessible without the forcing conditions, should have been available in the ordinary daily experience of the dynamic, rather than requiring the removal of everything the dynamic was running on to finally surface. The lateness of it is part of the honest accounting. The genuine feeling was always there. The management strategies were always what was preventing it from being undeniably present. The forcing conditions forced the management strategies to fail in a way that they had not previously failed. But the feeling they were failing to contain was the same feeling that was present throughout, was the real size the whole time, was always what the avoidant was feeling underneath the managed version. The lateness means the genuine feeling contact is arriving in conditions where the useful options have narrowed, where the window for the feeling to produce the change that might have changed things has passed, where what comes next is not the restoration of what was, but the beginning of something genuinely different, if both people want it and the evidence supports it, or the honest conclusion of something that reached its natural end. You are not required to wait while the genuine feeling contact does its work. Your life is not on hold pending the avoidance interior reckoning. The work happening on their side is happening on their timeline, and it is theirs. Your timeline is your own, and it is moving forward whether or not the interior reckoning on their side produces anything that is relevant to your actual daily life. What is relevant to your actual daily life is what you are building, what you are becoming. The specific, daily accumulating quality of a life that is being genuinely inhabited by someone who made the honest choice to direct the full investment of their own attention toward their own life. That choice was correct. The forcing conditions it produced are doing their work. What the work produces is theirs to carry forward. Your life is yours to carry forward. Both are real. Only one of them is yours to tend. Tend yours.